But so what was yours again?
So I took the test and I'm a ISFP, which is introverted, sensing, feeling, perceiving. Yeah.
And last time I took it, which might have been like a year or two ago, I was a ENFP. And I think at the time I was really like, oh, this is really cool. This really gets me or whatever. And now I've grown a little away from it. And now I'm just thinking maybe it just varies each time that people take it. My fiance has taken it like 3 times and gotten 3 different things.
I've taken it probably half a dozen times, and a couple times it thought I was intuitive instead of sensing. But they look at, when you get the results, most of the time it's like a percentage of your 80% introverted, 20% extroverted.
Sure.
And then for the other 3, and that's me, it's it thinks I'm like 75 to 80% introverted.
Yeah.
And then for the other 3 qualities, I'm pretty close to the half and half.
Yeah.
So that this concept of this personality theory and all the Myers-Briggs stuff, when I first started diving into it, because basically I took the test and then you start reading the description of what this personality type is. And I just couldn't believe it was so dead on for me. It said things like muted enthusiasm, I was like, okay, yeah. And so in my head, I'm like, this is science, this is incredible. And then I started catching drift of the criticisms against it and people's doubts.
Yeah.
And like, I guess it's kind of like religion in a way. It's like it just helps. I guess religion is just a way for someone, and for at least this is how I see it, to understand the world, a framework to understand the world better. And personality theory for me has been very helpful because, like, for example, the 7 people in the lips, the flaming lips, I started hypothesizing who everyone was,
Sure.
And I hypothesized who my wife was. She took it. I was right.
Oh, okay.
And then, you'd read about the way your personality type interacts with the others. And then I started applying it to my kids.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, so if I have a child that's this type, what can I find out there that talks about the struggles for a kid of that personality type? And it just seems so dead on.
Sure.
And the things to encourage them, and that there's some of, their hidden strengths that you haven't realized yet what those might be. It's been really incredible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there are psychologists and stuff that probably look at those and go, well, there's more to personality than like these 4 things or whatever it might be. I remember listening to a conversation with someone who said that there might be another one because there's like psychological personality traits. I can't remember all 4 of them. It's like agreeableness, introversion, extroversion.
For sure. Yeah.
I can't remember the other 2, but
like aggressiveness and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And then another one that they were talking about maybe adding to that would be selfishness. So it factors into that. So how many things do you do that sort of benefit yourself? And sometimes there are people who are takers and balancers or givers. So, I mean, I think that maybe the doubt that I've had with those personality things is that, yeah, people are much more complex than those things, but also that we can always take a different lens on every single thing and kind of go, oh, well, if you look at it through a lens of selfishness, then that kind of reshapes how you view it. If you look at it through a lens of agreeableness, that kind of shapes how you view it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, people are more complex than just dividing the whole world into 16 different personality types.
Sure.
But as far as the broad strokes, I think it's a really useful tool. And I think, like, my whole life, I've been told you're shy, you're quiet, you're serious. And these have all been told to me as if these are faults. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So to have that kind of stigma around me my whole life kind of fucks with you.
Yeah.
And at least it has me. And then to see something that says, okay, you're an ISFP. Here's how you think about things, and here are your characteristics. And to see something that says that's the way it is, instead of here's
You
what's
have to
wrong with
change.
you and you have to change. I can't believe I'm 37 years old and it's taken this long to be like, oh, okay. So it's just me, and these could be my strengths. And, you can work on your weaknesses, but, maybe they'll always be your weaknesses or your weakest link or whatever.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean they're weak. It's just you excel at other things. Yeah.
I do like to have more of a, who was that book? Carol Dweck, Mindset. That book, we had to read it for my developmental psychology class whenever I was still a music education major. But it really helped me sort of grow, and pun intended, that the book sort of talks about two different mindsets, which is a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And ever since then, and kind of even before then, I always had this growth mindset, which is, while there are some things that are set in stone, you can, if you just have the mindset of you can work on it and not necessarily fix it, but work on it, there are things and weaknesses or whatever it might be that you can overcome. And I do think that while people have sort of maybe a predisposition to have certain weaknesses in certain areas, I think that I find it not necessarily harmful, although in some cases, yes, to go, this will always be a weakness or something.
Yeah.
But I do think that having an understanding of this is something that I'm sort of predisposed to have a weakness at, and so I should approach it in this way. And I think that that helps people a lot overcome those things. But
Yeah, self-awareness is so huge. And there's so many people that I see struggling that I feel like they just don't have the self-awareness they need.
yeah,
And it sounds really pretentious to say, but and I think I've been guilty of that plenty of times. So the difference between, back to your book, the fixed mentality and the growth mentality, it's probably similar to like the difference between if you're intuitive or if you're sensing. I believe with sensing, you're relating new information to the past and how it compares.
yeah,
And with intuition, you are examining the possibilities
sure,
of what could be. And I'm probably more sensing, but I've I've taken the test a couple times that said I was intuitive, but I feel like I'm trying to embrace the intuitive side of it,
Sure.
where I think most of my life I've felt nostalgic about things and thinking about the past and romanticizing the past, and are just getting in a loop of reliving painful things from the past. And lately I feel like I've been in a good place where I'm just concentrating on the future and the possibilities.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining that's the nuts and bolts of that.
Yeah, kind of. It's like understanding that you can grow, that everything can grow and adapt and evolve. That's kind of what I have my 3 things as a sort of guide for my life. And so the I might be wrong is that aspect of it, is that I can adapt and change, and where I am right now might not be necessarily the right answer or the best answer. And so I like thinking about it in that way, that I always kind of relate it to astrophysics, or a little bit, that the whole universe is expanding and growing and changing, and everything is flowing, and the way that life has adapted on Earth is a result of not necessarily us being a certain way and then just staying good. It's about us changing and adapting, which is how life has progressed over time. And so I think that might be more of what the growth mindset is that not so much that I am this way, but it's I can be better.
Yeah.
Or I can improve or adapt. At least adapt.
Adapt, yeah.
But I do find that I've gone on either side of the extrovert introvert thing that I mean people refer to as like ambiverts.
Okay.
That I like performing and playing music, and that's definitely an extroverted thing, and I like talking to people like this, and that's an extroverted thing. But there's also lots of times in social situations where if it's more than like 6 people, I just
Clam up.
Yeah.
Shut down. Yeah, I think it's like they would, if you could take the test, it would, if you're kind of in the middle, it says you exhibit both qualities, but you prefer this one. Yeah. So, yeah. And back to like the criticism of, you can't pigeonhole people. Sure you can't. But, this is a pretty decent, pretty bulletproof, framework to at least, reference people out of.
Right. And I think I remember that learning about being an ENFP helped me feel more comfortable about the ways that I approach both myself and how I approach other people.
Yeah.
And that I do tend to intuit or feel how other people, like I'm an empath in that way, and I think that clarified that a little bit more for me.
Yeah. One funny thing about touring that it shed light on for me is usually on the road. Thing about being on tour that people that haven't done it don't realize is how much of it is just being around people and sitting in this room like me and you are for hours, trying to find a way to pass the time, to fill the time. And on days off on the road, usually everybody goes out to a big group dinner or something, or goes to a bar or whatever.
Sure.
And I'm notoriously known for not doing those things. And because in my head, I'm like, I can't do that. I gotta be in this hotel room and, relive the history of Kiss on YouTube so that tomorrow I can face the day,
Sure.
And then when you start reading about how introverts get their energy, well, they get it from not being around people,
Yeah.
And they recharge, and it's like, okay, of course. Well, of course, that's why I am this way.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way you,
Yeah.
it's the way you get energy, So in the past, when I felt bad about being one of the few
Sure. Yeah.
that doesn't go out to the big group dinner, it's like, no, it makes total sense, I think.
And I have a really good friend that's that way too, and he used to be involved in our cosplay group, and we would like perform and do skits and stuff. And over time, as we kind of realized, like, this is just like almost harmful to him.
Yeah.
Like, it became just a lot easier for us to go, oh, okay, well, let's just let him leave it be, because it's like actually kind of like hurtful.
Yeah. And in touring, if you don't have a strong self-awareness, I think there's a lot of opportunities to really do some damage to yourself, because you don't know how to regulate yourself in these situations. If there are on average 100 beers in a dressing room every day, and you can't figure out that maybe you shouldn't drink 10 a day. Touring can really mess with people, myself included. If you can't set boundaries for yourself, and being around people all the time, if you're as severely introverted as I am,
Yeah.
it can really mess you up.
Yeah. So where does the desire to perform music fit in?
That's a good question. I mean, if you read about ISFPs, and one of the nicknames for that particular personality type is the composer. But if you are a ESFP, which is just changing one letter from introverted to extroverted, I to E, one of those nicknames is the performer.
Yeah.
So it gives you...
You're one step away from being...
Yeah. And those people can be pretty different, and it's just one quality that's different. But I've always had this urge to perform, from, just performing for my parents on their couch with air guitars, I think the difference between my personality type and maybe people that are extroverted is I don't want it to be all about me. And I don't like to be the main focal point.
Sure.
With ISFPs, it's written that you're a supporting player, and it can be a key supporting player.
Yeah.
But it's more about the sum is greater, the whole is greater than the sum of parts. What's the saying? Yeah.
Sure.
So, I've done, growing up, I did talent shows where it's just me playing piano and all that kind of stuff. But I get really freaked out when it's like, okay, you're the focus. Not a fan. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm kind of struggling with that too. And again, I'm still kind of figuring out where I am on the extrovert introvert thing, that I've kind of just accepted that I'm somewhere in the middle. That, so like tomorrow I'm playing a show and my band is Santiago Ramones.
Right. That's a very extroverted
Yeah.
billing.
But I don't like that. Like I don't, while, because the thing is, it's my music, and I got the band. I basically just asked people to play with me, so it's still my music. I just don't want to, like yesterday in rehearsal, I was like, I need to find a time to introduce all of you because I cannot just take all of this credit for me.
I think about music that I like personally, and in cases where it's, commonly thought of as just one person, but it's a band name.
Yeah.
Like the Mountain Goats. A lot of people think it's just John Darnielle. The Magnetic Fields, another band that people is the brainchild of Stephen Merritt. Those are two people that I believe are pretty introverted. Whereas maybe if they were just as extroverted as they are introverted,
Sure.
it would have been their names. So maybe you lean extroverted, but you have these
Sure.
tendencies.
Yeah. And I think it might also be that I just have a giant fear of the ego.
Yeah. Getting out of hand.
Yeah. Because we're required to be humble. Sort of socially, we're required to be humble. But
some people are rewarded for not being that, though. Somehow they've pulled off some
sure.
some vibe that, yeah, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, well, like I can't stand much of anything that Kanye West says anymore.
Yeah.
And that's an example that like I can't really separate art from the artist anymore. But
yeah.
I don't think that's healthy.
Yeah.
To give someone like this power or whatever it might be,
A platform.
to let them know you are amazing. No one can get in your way.
It makes for a lot of really destructive lives, but it also can make for a lot of really great art. So if you consume the art, it can work out pretty well. But if you're that person living that life, it can be pretty unfulfilling or destructive.
Sure. And I kind of see that with all of the kind of products of the machine of pop music that are, I say that kind of with a very negative connotation, but someone like Justin Bieber, whenever he had sort of his like crazy thing that happened with him, it's kind of clearly what you did to this person was from a very young age, you told him he's amazing and everything that he does is wonderful. And then you gave him all of this money and all of these fans and told him, look at how wonderful you are.
Mm-hmm. You enabled them to become the monster that they are, that they've become. And then we very quickly take them down when we feel like, you've gotten out of hand.
Yeah.
Now we hate you.
Yeah.
And
how do you expect someone like that to like come down from that and be like, oh, I'm supposed to just be like everyone else now?
Yeah. Yeah. It's you're kind of shedding some light on as consumers some of the bad behavior that
but with that, like I don't like being sort of the center. I don't like being the ego, but at the same time I made this sort of branding SEO decision to make it all my name.
Yep.
Because I do composer stuff, I do electronic stuff, and I do singer-songwriter stuff, and it's all me, and putting different names on all of it kind of splinters the whole thing. And so I'm just like, let's just put it all me, but then it's all about me, and I'm afraid of the ego.
Well, I would say if you're struggling with that, then you just assign it another name.
Mm-hmm.
and everything becomes under that name. Aphex Twin would be another example. Someone I was
Yeah.
just listening to yesterday, severely introverted person, goes by Aphex Twin. And like the latest Mountain Goats record, I believe there are songs that Jean Darnielle doesn't even play instruments on, maybe. There are a lot of different musicians and really high caliber session guys. They're his songs. He's singing, they're his lyrics.
Yeah.
But he's using all these different players and a different producer to produce the final thing.
Yeah. And that's that composer type.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. You're the guy making the thing.
yeah.
You're designing the hamburger and they're making it.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I like doing stuff like that too. Like for my masters, I had to do this concert, this recital to kind of show all the stuff that I've been working on. And so only like 2 of those I performed. The rest, it was just everyone else playing my stuff. And I really enjoyed that experience. And then it's kind of weird too, taking that to like the commercial music or the contemporary music perspective, because a lot of times it's like, oh, the band is like the people playing it.
Yeah.
And so it's a little interesting that there can be sort of both sides to that. And I guess I'm still figuring out where I am.
Where you fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with your degree, with the composition projects you're talking about, what did you write and how did it have to be performed and like what was that?
So, I mean, I could have done anything, but I there was a set of 7 pieces and then 4 more after that. But the 7 pieces were a music cycle or a series of pieces that are sort of like an anthology of essentially Black Mirror, but with music. Exploration in the future and technology through different musical ideas. So there was 2 electronic pieces, a electroacoustic piece with a choir, a art song, a women's choir piece, and a short opera, which was all kind of telling different stories in the future and technology.
It's ambitious.
Yeah, well, it was fun. And thanks, I think. Sometimes ambition isn't a positive thing. But and then the other 4 pieces was a brass quintet, a piano solo, and 2 big band jazz songs.
These are all performed?
Yes.
Wow.
I've been hesitating on putting it up on things because I want the video first. And the guy who filmed it has but and it was madness to try and get it all put together. Obviously, I had like 42 musicians involved in everything, like total.
Yeah.
The big band was the biggest thing because it's 5 saxes, 4 trombones, 4 trumpets.
Did you get into a position where you felt like you were having to tell a section they were not playing it the way you wanted it or anything like that? Were you actually confronting people? And
I think it was more.
And do you do that in your band with other musicians?
Yes, sometimes.
Because that's been a really difficult spot to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's most of it gladly with like classical musicians. Most of it was in the sheet music.
Yeah.
And it like if I didn't say it on the page and you're doing it, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
but like I didn't put anything there that shouldn't have been there. And as long as you do everything that's on the page, I will be happy with how it sounds.
Yeah.
That's harder, obviously, to do with a contemporary setting where it's not like written out music, but it's just, hey, I like did this demo and play it like I did on the recording. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And the hard part too has been like respecting people's musicality. Like, I got these musicians because I know how good they are.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, sometimes it's like, oh, I want it this way. But other times it's, you're a good guitarist or you're a good drummer, you're a good whatever. Do your thing there.
Yeah. I think like what you're talking about is really applicable to people in bands. Because I've been in situations where I've been the de facto leader of the band.
Sure.
And after we play a song or whatever, they would look at me like, did we do it? You know? And that can be really exhausting if you are like me. And one thing about this new Mountain Goats record that's really interesting is he talks about just not being at a session, you know, for an entire day because he doesn't want to have his hands are just his presence being there is going to affect maybe what these musicians are going to do.
Yeah.
And he trusts the musicians enough.
Exactly.
And the producer enough. Like, I've already written the song. You guys make it how you think it should be.
Yeah.
And in my own personal life, experienced a little bit of that last fall up at Dave Fridman's studio in upstate New York, recording New Lips music. Wayne kind of took a different approach, saying, you guys are going to record for a couple days with just Dave. I'm not going to be in there. Mm-hmm. And those kinds of techniques are really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Wayne being in the control room, hearing what you're putting on his song, there's good things about that because you're maybe, I don't know, just more hyper aware of him hearing it. But you're also, whether you say it or not, there's a part of you that says, oh, I'm not going to try that part that way because Wayne doesn't like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Them to accept what I'm doing
and
they're watching.
He, you know, the job he has in the band is when we play the song, we look at him and go, did we play it right?
Sure.
And I'm sure that can be exhausting. So he said, here are these songs. Here's the skeletons of the songs. You guys spend a couple days doing your thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be over here somewhere else in the building doing this. And let's see what happens. And those kinds of games, they're not games, but those kinds of approaches and techniques are they're kind of games.
Yeah.
Because you're playing with the rules, the rules that you've set. And or the rules you've played by in the past at least. And you're saying, what happens now if you change the game a little?
Yeah.
It's fun.
Have you, well, because you've been in that role before, do you like leaving it up to interpretation?
I'm thinking through this. As an introvert, I'm thinking through the answer before I say it out loud. Yes, and it depends on how much I love and am in awe of that musician.
Sure.
Because sometimes if I've been in bands, and most all these bands I'm talking about are bands no one has ever heard of or has any, these are just bands that as a teenager and stuff I was pursuing. if the musicians weren't that great, then you have to micromanage every little bit.
Sure.
But if they're astounding musicians, then they do something that you never would have come up with on your own. Mm-hmm. And you're like, my God, that's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love to be surprised. The role I'm in now, I'm not in a position where people are playing pieces of music I've composed for the most part. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I'm putting myself out there that much. I'm more on the other side of it than anything right now.
Do you want to be?
No. I mean, I think part of getting older is finding ways to stay sane and make your life work for you. You only have so much control over it, and to let things go. And I feel like I'm in a pretty good place of content and where, the ways I can express myself are there. I'm not writing a lot of songs from start to finish and giving them to a band to play. And
sure.
But I have my ways of adding to a formula that is kind of in place. And so no, no, I'm pretty good. Yeah.
No Derek Brown symphony.
I mean, it's interesting to think about, but I don't know if I think it would just be for me personally. I don't know how much I would broadcast to the world, honestly. Mm-hmm. I think it'd just be me listening to it on headphones, getting enjoyment out of it that way.
Yeah. That is an interesting thing. So, like, there are people that make just their own music for themselves. How much of that, like, because I feel like I have the part of me that is the extrovert that's like, I made a thing. Like, the child that draws something and
yeah.
shows it to the parent.
Yeah.
Other than, instead of just like the child that draws something and then like puts it in their binder that's full of other drawings.
Yeah.
And just never shows them to anyone.
Yeah, yeah.
How much of that would you, I guess, rather have? Like, would you rather have a whole bunch of music that you're just content with listening on your own? Or do you want to show some of it?
I guess having the binder full of music is more appealing. Mm-hmm. I'm not indicating I have a binder full of music.
Sure.
But certainly I have a lot of things that no one's ever heard.
Yeah.
That I think are really great. That urge to get it out to the world isn't as strong as it was 15 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah. To get that validation. Mm-hmm. It's that's gone. That's long gone.
Do you ever put shades of that into, like, oh geez, they are getting the flood alerts or whatever?
Oh yeah.
But do you have, like, maybe in a session with the Lips or something?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, here's a thing that I've been messing with.
Yeah. I mean, the way it works with the Lips, I suppose if I've had musical ideas that I've been thinking could be good for the band, I'll just send them. I'll create everything in my own controlled environment, the final mix and all that, and then send it to Wayne and Steven and say, I don't know if this is something we could use in some way, if this would help, but this might be something for the Lips. Mm-hmm. There's things that, like, I made a piece of music the day my wife told me she was pregnant for the first time. I just made this piece of music, and I was like, I never giving this to anybody.
Sure.
It's just for me to commemorate the moment, you know. Mm-hmm. So there's different motives, you know, sometimes behind why am I making something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually just kind of thought about that like in the same way that a diary is like writings for someone to process emotions and what they went through their day or whatever. Sometimes people put poetry and like, oh, here's just my like private feeling or whatever.
Yeah.
But you don't have to like broadcast your diary out to the rest of the world.
Some people's social media is them sending this. Yeah.
But I guess I hadn't thought of the idea of having music be a diary as well.
Yeah. I would say for me personally, it's been that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So nobody asked Derek about that.
You're never going to hear that piece of music.
And it's fine because it would be the equivalent of like sneaking in and reading someone's diary.
Yeah. I hadn't quite thought of it that way, but you're right. Yeah.
Because I definitely do have poetry that I've written that I'm like, I don't think this is like a song thing, nor is it like a put it out in places sort of thing.
Right.
It helped me, and that's fine. That's all it needs to be.
I think that's healthy.
Yeah.
To think like that and to set those boundaries. Boundaries are important to me. And, you know, at times in my life when I've been less in control of things, you know, there haven't been as many boundaries that I've placed around me, and that didn't work out too well, you know.
Sure. I guess, would it be weird to ask about the dynamic of the lips?
No, I'll just not tell you the things the world don't need to know.
Sure. So yeah, like what is because there are bands that like, oh, everyone contributes equally, and then I don't think the Lips is that way.
No, I don't think there's that many bands that are like that, honestly. It'd be really hard to produce a lot of results in a band like that, where it's everyone. The thing that I probably struggled with the most in being in bands over the years is not fully recognizing band dynamics and or appreciating what people that I've been in bands with are bringing to the table and what they're not bringing to the table, and expecting them to be something that they're not. Mm-hmm. And looking back on it, I'm like, oh, I was a fool to be like that. But if there's anything I can help students here at the school learn, is maybe your role in a band and other people's role, and trying to work on recognizing that. Because no, the Lips aren't like that at all. Mm-hmm. And the Lips are kind of a weird thing in that there are 7 people in the band.
Yeah.
So there's, that's a lot of personalities. And there's certain people in the band that are very passive, and certain people that are very active. And that's the way any band is. Mm-hmm. You know, you look at the Beatles, the Who, the Stones. For every, extrovert like Keith Moon, or I think Mick Jagger's an extrovert. I think I've read that people think he's an introvert. There's John Entwistle, severe introvert. There's Charlie Watts. You can't have a band of 5 Steven Tylers. You got to have Tom Hamilton on the bass to even things out. So for me, looking at each member of the band on paper as to what personality type they are, and then looking at it all as one big puzzle piece. It's pretty fascinating, whether it be the Lips or it's the Who, going, okay, how did this work? That's always really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
There's that bit from, is it Let It Be, where George gets frustrated with Paul and says, I'll play what you want me to play. If you don't want me to play, I won't play at all. That's the classic introvert dealing with an extrovert. Like, I don't know what it is you're trying to do, but I'm here to help.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if that came close to answering your question.
Sure. Yeah, but it's like, I guess it did. But,
band dynamics are, you've got a lot of ego at stake. You've got a lot of passion. This is someone's art. The songs are extensions of how they're projecting themselves to the world. It gets really emotional and it's amazing. That's what makes bands so fun. As far as just being a spectator.
Yeah.
There was a video on Twitter the other day. It was Charlie Watts' birthday, and there was a video of them listening to a playback of Wild Horses, and it was just fixated on Charlie, and he was looking at the camera like, "Why are you filming me?" And there was a fill that he'd played that when he hears it back, he kind of nods his head and puts his lips out like, "Oh, that was good."
Yeah.
And then it pans over to Mick Jagger as the song's ending, and he's in full performance mode, and he, is making motions with his arms about how great and grandiose it is, and then he kind of claps, and it's like, oh my God, what a great little clip to illustrate how different people can be.
Yeah.
That's, I would say, if we're educating people here, maybe that's something we should talk more about.
Yeah. In a band of 7 people, how does it not just like get drowned out?
How does what?
How is it not just like too much?
Well, everyone just has to be comfortable in what their role is.
Yeah.
And Jake Ingalls, one of the guys in the band, he's also the main dude in his own band. But in the Lips role, he's a supporting player.
Yeah.
So he's someone living both lives right now.
Yeah.
He's the guy that whips the troops into shape for his own band and gets things rolling and books the gigs and makes sure the van has gas and all that stuff. And with the Lips, he just gets to show up and play his parts and support the greater cause. And I think he's really good at knowing what he needs, what the situation needs from him.
Yeah.
So I think everyone in the Lips is very smart, and several of the guys like Nick Lay and Matt Kirksey, they've been in many, many bands over the years. And these are guys that they know about band dynamics and their place.
Yeah.
And not to say that sometimes it doesn't, sometimes the balance gets out of whack. But I think if anything's going to function like that, like the Lips do with 7 people, there's got to be, people just kind of have to know their role.
Yeah. How does, I guess, like promotion and management and stuff, how is that different for like the Lips as it is for, you know, some band that's trying to get started out here at ACM or something?
Well, it's quite a bit different, and I don't have the answers. But yeah, of course, it's very different. I mean, the Lips have obviously made this career and are known for elements of the live show or the records or whatever. Mm-hmm. And when you're new, you don't have that identity forged yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, without getting too boring and approaching it in a way that I don't like to approach things. You kind of have to, as an artist, you have to sort of find what are the things that I want to project out to the world.
Yeah.
If they're going to start to become interested in my band and my music, what do I want them to walk away from it thinking about me? Mm-hmm. And what do I want them to think when they hear my music or when they read an interview with me? You know, you're branding yourself, and that can be really hard for some people. So with the Lips, it's just continuing on the trajectory that the Lips have been on for a long time.
Yeah.
And adding to that as you go. But with a new band, I think it's just important for a young artist to go look at it and say, what do I want to project out?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that really answers what you're asking, but you kind of have to find an identity and box yourself in a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but you know what I mean, though?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're making a product.
You are, yeah. And yeah, you know, everything, you know, this package of donuts has a presentation to it. And yeah, you're doing the same.
Yeah, yeah.
And if anyone hears this and goes, oh, shut up. It's like, no, you are.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say the music isn't special and all that stuff, but
yeah.
You have to put it together in a way that, you know, is a consistent experience for the people finding it.
Yeah. And then it's kind of a difficult quandary about selling art.
Yeah.
In that we talk about art in a way that it's like, oh, it's this, you know, priceless thing.
Yeah.
It's our communication of our heart or whatever. And it's like, but also it costs $3.99 per month for you to be able to like.
And that's the difference between what we were saying earlier, between like, here's the music that I made for me, and then here's the stuff that's going out to the world.
Sure.
You know, I think you're touching on that.
Yeah. And I mean, there's still stuff that like, there's still a way of selling that, the like diary, if you will. And there's people who do that. And in a way, it's some of the songs that I have, I am doing that, but like, it's still kind of a weird emotional thing to put yourself through as well. Because not only are you like using the music as like a therapeutic form of expression, but it's also like, buy it.
Yeah. Now I'm going to try to sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not for everyone.
Is there an approach that can be there with like, obviously you take a different approach from someone who's like, I make pop music, listen to this fun, crazy music, and someone who's going, I make very intimate music that's about, you know, emotions and relationships, and now I'm going to put this out so that hopefully other people will enjoy.
And I'm sorry, what's
But like, how do you approach that differently? Like, how would you market the intimate type versus the
I guess there's just a difference in the authenticity. There'd have to be. I mean, when Taylor Swift's new song and video came out a few weeks ago, that the way that gets marketed should and is vastly, maybe it's not obvious, but it should be vastly different than the way Mount Erie made a record about his wife dying of cancer, you know,
Sure.
which he put out. You know, it's like, unfortunately, there is a framework in the music industry that it all has to go through one certain kind of way. But I guess with pop music, you can be big and dumb and just have fun and not take it too seriously. And but if you're putting something out that's emotionally very heavy and serious, and your marketing, you know, should reflect that in a way. It should be as tasteful as what you're trying to push.
Sure.
Yeah.
Authenticity actually comes up a lot in the conversation about music, and especially business and everything.
Yeah. And I found out as an ISFP, that's supposedly my number one driver, you know, as like a cognitive function.
Yeah. How do you, I guess I keep asking these business questions because that's kind of more of what you do here at ACM, but also because what I need help with. How do you market authenticity?
I think you have to just do it with integrity, and you can't make boisterous claims about this shit's, you know, badass, and I don't know. You just have to approach it in a way that doesn't compromise your value system, and resonates with the people that are going to be open to hearing your thing. You know, because we all are tuned in different ways, that if a commercial comes on TV and it's of a certain tone that I don't like, I'm immediately out. But if it's of a certain look and there's a song playing that is connecting me, I guess if we're talking about Santiago and marketing something that I think you can't look at the Kanyes and such as models for what you just can't, because it's not the same thing. You have to look at yourself and say, you know, if I'm talking to somebody in conversation and I'm wanting to point out some strength of mine, how do I do that? Okay, now how do I apply that to my music and the world?
Last thing.
That was me skirting a question.
Sure. What's something that you've been listening to, watching, and playing, if you play video games, or reading, that you want people to know about?
I've been going to the library a lot this year, the public library, which I think is I don't know how many people go to the library still.
Yeah, those exist and they're great.
They're wonderful. It's been a really fun year. Not even reading the whole book, just getting a book, reading a few chapters, taking it back. Been reading a lot about personality theory. I'm always reading about music. I'm typically always reading a Neil Peart memoir. He was the drummer in Rush, and he writes a lot of travel books. I love his travel books. I find myself, when I'm not traveling, I read about traveling. And music. Is that what was that? Yeah. We talked about some of the things I've been obsessed with, but I think I'm just enjoying having access to almost everything in the world with high speed internet.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, being 37, you start to figure out what you like. And it's really good once someone played a song the other day and they're like, oh, I love this band. And within 20 seconds, and the singer came in, I said, that's not for me. Huh. And I think they're like, you're an asshole. I'm like, no, I just know.
Yeah.
And there's so much good music that I haven't discovered yet that I don't need to listen to the thing I know I don't like.
Sure.
You can still like it. It's cool.
Yeah. There's too much out there to try
there's too much.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the other day, some Stephen Stills solo song from a 1972 record I heard. I was like, that might be one of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my life. And it's existed for my entire life.
Yeah.
How many more are there like that, you know? So no, I'm not going to listen to Foals.
And then watching
Watching, I'm less good about that. I find YouTube has just become my kind of TV because I pull it up and it kind of knows what I like.
Becoming one with the machine, Derek.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have cable at the house. We have the Hulu, Netflix kind of set up, but we stopped paying for the crazy cable. And I love it, but
I'd be surprised who does have cable anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, like people, and I don't know how people are getting shows like Barry and stuff that are on HBO, but with the kids and my 3 kids being the ages they are, there's just not a lot of time for that. You know, I can listen to music at work or in the car, podcast or whatever. I'm a huge digester of Mark Maron's What the Fuck podcast. I mean, I try at least every episode every Monday and Thursday. So that's become a very ingrained part of my life for several years. I kind of have my routine of things I constantly go through and digest. Yeah. I had this one rule about the Grateful Dead this year where I would be working in my office and I'd start a live show because a lot of these live shows are completely available on YouTube or archive.org. Yeah. And I would make myself not skip ahead or you know, even if they're like doing the worst version of Johnny B. Good or something, I'd make myself stick it out and just listen and go, okay, there's something here that I don't know, I don't understand or don't know about yet. And I'm just going to make myself listen. So that's been one funny little, and it kind of helps with that like attention deficit issue that I sometimes get where you're like, I'm just going to go to the next thing. Yeah. It's like, no, I'm sticking it out. We're going to listen to this set. Yeah.
Experimentation is how we all learn. So
I agree.
Once again, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Hey, thank you, man. It's been fun.
And once again, plug your stuff.
Flaming Lips are going on tour this summer, and come say hi.
Yeah, I mean, if you won't say it, I will. But like, the Flaming Lips put on like some of the best live shows you will ever experience. So like even if you don't listen to them, it's definitely worth going to see it because it's an experience.
You'll have fun.
Yeah. Well, once again, I'm Santiago Ramones.
I'm Derek Brown.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music. You can download my demo or pay for it. Songs with Words. I hope to someday put out this ambient album that I just have been waiting to get money for it, but like that'll be out eventually.
I'll listen to that.
Yeah. Let me pull up the next show that I have. I'm playing an acoustic gig at the Plaza District on July 6th in the morning. And I'm playing a acoustic electric gig at the Patriarch on July 19th. And that'll be at like 8 p.m. So come see it, come say hi, come hang out. I do a great variety of music. I always have my podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.